My oath was to the Constitution, not to him. The entire courtroom froze. Attorney General Victoria Hale stood at the witness stand, one hand still resting on the Bible she had just sworn upon. The defendant, former State President Daniel Cross, slowly turned his head toward her. "Tell them the truth," he said under his breath. "If you believe power always protects itself, subscribe right now to Sweet Justice and comment your country below. Because today's story will challenge everything you think you know about justice." Victoria Hale had spent 8 years building a reputation as the most uncompromising prosecutor in the state of Aldermayne Sharp. Calculated, untouchable. And now she was accused of lying under oath to protect the most powerful man in the state, Daniel Cross, the same president she once defended publicly, the same president now charged with conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and financial misconduct tied to state infrastructure funds, the same man sitting at the defense table staring at her like she had betrayed him, or like she was about to. 3 months earlier, Daniel Cross had been at the height of his second term. Approval ratings stable. Public appearances controlled. Media narrative carefully shaped. But then the audit report leaked. $72 million in emergency flood relief funding redirected to shell contractors. Contracts tied to donors. Donors tied to private trusts. Private trusts tied back to. Across the state erupted. Protests, editorials, demands for resignation. Victoria Hale stood at a podium then, calm and measured. "We will investigate thoroughly," she had said. And she did. Or at least that's what the public believed. What no one knew was that Daniel Cross had called her personally the night before the first subpoena was drafted. "You understand the consequences if this spirals," he had told her. Her answer had been professional. "My office follows evidence, but politics is rarely that simple." Subscribe to Sweet Justice if you want to see how power collides with accountability. Now back in the courtroom, Daniel Cross was no longer president. He had resigned under pressure 6 weeks before trial. His legal team was aggressive, expensive, strategic. But today was different. Today, the defense had called a surprise witness, Attorney General Victoria Hale. Gasps filled the courtroom when she was sworn in, because no one expected the state's top prosecutor to be questioned by the defense. Daniel leaned forward slightly. "Ms. Hale," his attorney began smoothly, "did you personally authorize the delay in executing the second search warrant?" Victoria's expression did not shift. "Yes." "And was that delay discussed with my client before execution?" Pause. The courtroom leaned forward collectively. "Yes." A ripple of whispers. The defense attorney pressed. "Did President Cross request that delay?" Victoria inhaled. "Yes." The prosecution objected immediately. "Sustained," the judge ruled. "Rephrase." The defense smiled faintly. "Was there communication between you and President Cross regarding timing of investigative actions?" "Yes." That single word altered the atmosphere. The prosecution looked stunned. Victoria continued before another question could land. He expressed concern about political instability. "And you agreed?" "I assessed the risk," she replied carefully. Daniel's jaw tightened. The defense attorney stepped closer. "Did you tell investigators that no such conversation occurred?" Silence. The prosecution objected again. Foundation. The judge allowed limited inquiry. Victoria's composure held. "I did not disclose every private executive conversation." "Did you deny it?" the attorney asked sharply. She hesitated, and that hesitation was loud. The defense attorney produced a document, a sworn affidavit from Victoria during pre-trial motions. Statement line 14. No communication occurred that influenced the timing of warrant execution. The courtroom gasped audibly. Daniel leaned back slowly. "Under oath," the attorney emphasized. Victoria's pulse pounded, but her voice remained even. "That statement requires context. Did you lie under oath, Ms. Hale?" The question landed like a dropped weight. Subscribe to Sweet Justice right now if you think no one is above accountability. The judge leaned forward. Answer the question. Victoria's eyes moved briefly toward Daniel, then back to the attorney. I did not intend to mislead the court. That was not my question. The silence stretched. Did you lie? Victoria's fingers tightened around the edge of the stand. No. The defense attorney raised a brow. Then how do you reconcile the contradiction? Victoria's answer came measured. The conversation did not alter investigative substance, but it altered timing. He countered. Yes. And you omitted. That, yes. The word hung dangerously. Daniel Cross's face darkened. For the first time, he looked less protected, less certain. The prosecution scrambled to reframe, but the damage was done. A seed had been planted. If the Attorney General omitted material facts under oath, what else had been omitted? The defense wasn't just attacking procedure. They were attacking credibility. And credibility is everything in a corruption trial. The judge called a brief recess. The courtroom exploded into whispers. Reporters rushed for updates. Victoria stepped down from the stand and walked past Daniel without looking at him, but he spoke anyway. You promised, he said quietly. She did not answer, because what he meant by that promise, no one else in the courtroom yet understood, and that promise would become the center of everything. This was only the beginning. The courthouse hallway was louder than the courtroom, reporters shouting, cameras flashing, analysts already debating whether the Attorney General had just committed perjury on the stand. Victoria Hale walked past them without breaking stride. Attorney General, did you lie under oath? Are you protecting Daniel Cross? Will you resign? She did not respond. If you're watching this unfold and you believe power always leaves fingerprints, subscribe to Sweet Justice right now, because what happened next changed the direction of this entire trial. Inside a secured conference room, Victoria finally exhaled. Her deputy, Marcus Levin, shut the door. What was that? He demanded. It was controlled, she replied. That did not look controlled. She set her folder on the table calmly. It was calculated. Marcus stared at her. You admitted communication with him? Yes. You admitted omitting it? Yes. Victoria, they're going to file a perjury motion. She finally looked at him. They were always going to. Marcus's frustration shifted into confusion. What are you doing? Victoria stepped toward the window overlooking the courthouse steps. I'm letting them pull the thread. Back in the courtroom, Daniel Cross sat with his defense team. He was not smiling. He wasn't angry either. He looked unsettled. His attorney leaned close. That went better than expected. Daniel's eyes stayed fixed ahead. No, he said quietly. It didn't. 3 months earlier, the night the audit report leaked, Daniel Cross had called Victoria at 11:17 p.m. She remembered the timestamp clearly. You've seen it, he said without greeting. Yes. They don't understand the broader implications. The broader implication, she replied evenly, is $72 million unaccounted for. Silence. Then his voice lowered. You know how emergency allocations move. Layers, intermediaries. You signed off on expedited approval because the state was flooding, and now contractors tied to your donors were paid triple market value. Another pause. You're ambitious, he said finally. She didn't respond. You want to be governor one day. Her jaw tightened slightly. That's irrelevant. It's leverage. The word hung in the air. Daniel continued. If this turns into an indictment, the state fractures. Markets panic. Opposition radicals take advantage. You're describing consequences, she said. I'm describing reality. He then made the request. Delay the second warrant. Give his office 48 hours. She had agreed. Not to protect him. To trace where the money went next. Because she suspected something larger, something no one else had seen. Back in the present courtroom, the prosecution was scrambling. The lead prosecutor, Ellen Price, approached the bench. Your Honor, we move to strike the defense's insinuation of perjury until proper evidentiary review. The judge nodded carefully. The court will review the affidavit and sworn statements before ruling. Daniel watched Victoria re-enter the courtroom. Their eyes met briefly. He leaned toward his attorney. She's playing a long game. Churchio. Attorney frowned. What does that mean? It means she's not finished. Subscribe now if you think this is bigger than a corruption trial. The judge reconvened. Ms. Hale, you may retake the stand. Victoria did. This time, the prosecution approached first. Attorney General Hale, Ellen began, why did you delay execution of the second search warrant? To trace digital transfers leaving the primary contractor's account. And what did you find? Victoria glanced toward the jury. Layered transfers routed through offshore clearing accounts. A murmur. Were those accounts directly tied to President Cross? No. Daniel's attorney smirked faintly. But they were tied, Victoria continued calmly, to a private advisory council formed 2 weeks before emergency fund disbursement. The smirk faded. Who formed that council? Ellen asked. Victoria answered without hesitation. President Cross. Daniel's fingers tightened on the defense table. The defense attorney stood quickly. Objection. Relevance. Overruled, the judge said. Victoria continued. The delay allowed us to trace $31 million redirected through shell logistics firms. Owned by? She looked directly at Daniel. Board members with personal financial ties to the defendant. Gasps echoed. Daniel leaned back slowly. The defense attorney pivoted immediately. And yet, he said sharply, you failed to disclose your conversation with my client when first sworn. Yes. Why? Because the conversation was not about concealing evidence. It was about delaying it. It was about exposing it. She corrected. Silence. The defense attorney's voice sharpened. Did you record that call? Victoria hesitated, and this hesitation was different. Yes. The courtroom erupted. Daniel's head snapped toward her. You said you didn't keep copies, he whispered under his breath. The judge slammed the gavel. Order. The defense attorney froze. You recorded a sitting president without disclosure? I recorded a suspect in a corruption investigation. Was he under indictment at that time? No. Then under what authority? Victoria's voice lowered, steady. Under the authority of preserving evidence. Daniel felt the room tilt. He had recorded calls too, but he had assumed she wouldn't. The prosecution stepped forward. Your Honor, the state moves to admit audio exhibit 47. Daniel's attorney stood immediately. We have not reviewed this recording. You will, the judge said. The courtroom quieted as the clerk prepared playback. Daniel's pulse began to rise. He had expected Victoria to protect him, or at least to remain neutral. He had underestimated her. The audio began, static, then Daniel's voice. You want to be governor one day. Victoria's recorded voice followed. That's irrelevant. Daniel again. It's leverage. The courtroom stilled completely. The recording continued. If this turns into an indictment, the state fractures. Victoria, you're describing consequences. Daniel, I'm describing reality. Then, delay the second warrant. The room felt frozen. Daniel's recorded voice again. Give me 48 hours. Victoria. Why, Daniel? Because I need to control the narrative. Gasps. The recording ended. Silence. Daniel closed his eyes briefly. His attorney looked stunned. The prosecution stood tall. The defense attorney recovered first. You recorded selectively. Victoria remained calm. The full recording has been provided to both parties. Daniel leaned forward. You think this saves you? He muttered. Victoria didn't look at him. The defense pivoted again. You still omitted this communication. In sworn pretrial statement. Yes. Why? Because disclosing the recording prematurely would compromise a broader financial trace. The defense scoffed. That is convenient. Victoria met his stare. It is documented. The judge leaned forward. Ms. Hale, are you stating under oath that your omission was strategic for investigative preservation? Yes. And not to shield the defendant? Yes. Daniel finally spoke out loud. She's lying. Gasps again. The judge struck the gavel. Mr. Cross, control yourself. Daniel's composure cracked slightly. She promised me procedural stability. Victoria finally looked at him. I promised you due process. There was a difference, and the jury felt it. Subscribe to Sweet Justice if you want to see how power collapses when recordings surface. The judge called another recess. This time, Daniel remained seated. He no longer looked protected. He looked cornered. But he wasn't done yet. Because as his attorney leaned close, he whispered something that changed everything. We have our own recording. And if that recording existed, Victoria Hale's oath would be tested one final time. The words hung in the air like a live wire. We have our own recording. Daniel Cross didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His attorney stood slowly. Your Honor, before the state proceeds further with its narrative, the defense moves to admit Defense Exhibit 62. Victoria's eyes didn't widen, but her breathing changed. The judge narrowed her gaze. On what grounds? Rebuttal, context, and impeachment if necessary. The prosecution immediately objected. We have not reviewed. You will. The defense replied smoothly. The judge held up a hand. Approach. Both sides stepped forward. Daniel remained. Seated, calm, now, too calm. If you think power never goes down quietly, subscribe right now to Sweet Justice. Because this is where influence stops whispering and starts fighting. The white noise machine hummed as the attorneys argued quietly at the bench. The judge finally nodded. The court will allow conditional admission pending review. They stayed running, handed over a flash drive. Daniel leaned back. Victoria didn't look at him, but she knew exactly which call it was. The playback began. Static. Then Daniel's voice. You're ambitious. Victoria's voice followed. Stick to the issue. Daniel. Again. You want to be governor one day. Victoria. I want this state clean. The courtroom remained still. Then Daniel's voice lowered. You delay the warrant. I ensure your reform package passes unchallenged. The jury shifted. The recording continued. Victoria. That's inappropriate. Daniel. That's politics. A pause. Then. And if this blows back on you? Victoria. I'll handle it. The audio stopped. Silence detonated. The defense attorney turned slowly. You'll handle it. He repeated it carefully. Attorney General Hale, what exactly did you mean by that? Victoria didn't hesitate. That I would handle the investigation, within legal bounds. The defense stepped closer. Or that you would handle the fallout. The prosecutor objected. Argumentative. Overruled. The judge said quietly. The defense pressed. Did you ever intend to indict President Cross? Yes. Even while negotiating legislative cooperation? I was not negotiating. Is that what you call that exchange? Victoria held steady. I call it documenting an attempted influence. Daniel laughed under his breath. A short, bitter sound. You're rewriting it, he said. The judge slammed the gavel. Mr. Cross, another outburst will result in removal. But Daniel wasn't angry anymore. He looked almost relieved, because now it was mutual destruction. Subscribe to Sweet Justice if you think this just became a credibility war. The defense turned toward the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, the state asks you to believe this was strategic silence, investigative discretion, but under oath she denied communication influencing timing. He paused. She admitted that was false. The prosecutor rose immediately. She admitted omission, not fabrication. The defense pivoted. Omission under oath is perjury when material. The word perjury landed again. Heavy Victoria felt the room measuring her now, not as prosecutor, as witness, as potential defendant. The judge leaned forward. This court will not conduct a trial of the Attorney General within this proceeding, but the damage was already alive. Daniel stood suddenly. Your Honor, I would like to testify. Gasps erupted again. His attorney stiffened. We did not discuss, I want to testify. The judge studied him carefully. You understand the Risks. Yes. You understand cross-examination will be unrestricted? Yes. The judge nodded. Proceed. Daniel took the stand. The oath was administered. This time, when he swore to tell the truth, the entire courtroom felt the irony. He sat, composed, controlled. The defense began softly. Mr. Cross, did you ever request Attorney General Hale to suppress evidence? No. Did you ever offer her political advancement in exchange for leniency? No. Did you attempt to obstruct justice? No. The prosecutor stood. Cross-examination began. Mr. Cross, Ellen Price said evenly, why did you say delay the second warrant? Because executing it immediately would have destabilized emergency operations. Emergency flood relief? Yes. The relief funds already distributed? Yes. So executing a warrant would have stopped water. Murmurs. Daniel's jaw tightened. No. So, what would it have stopped? He hesitated. Public panic. The prosecutor stepped closer. Or financial tracing. Daniel's eyes narrowed. I was protecting economic stability. By asking the state's top prosecutor to delay evidence collection? Silence. The prosecutor's voice sharpened. You formed a private advisory council 2 weeks before funds were dispersed. Yes. Comprised of donors. They were business leaders. With shell logistics companies. They were vetted. Vetted by whom? My administration. And your administration received campaign contributions from them. That's legal. So is investigation, the prosecutor replied evenly. The jury felt it. Daniel leaned forward. She agreed to delay. Yes, the prosecutor said calmly. To trace offshore transfers. Daniel blinked. He hadn't known that detail. You didn't know she was tracing secondary routes, did you? Ellen asked. Silence. No. Because she didn't tell you. Daniel's confidence flickered. You're speculating. Am I? Ellen pressed a button. A second document appeared. Bank routing confirmations, time-stamped within the 48-hour delay window. Daniel stared. You thought she was protecting you, Ellen said quietly. But she was documenting you. The courtroom shifted. Victoria finally looked at him, not with anger, with certainty. Subscribe right now if you believe the most dangerous move in power is underestimating someone smarter than you. Daniel recovered quickly. You're assuming motive. I'm reading data, Ellen replied. He changed strategy. You recorded me without disclosure. Yes. Is that ethical? It is legal under state consent statute when one party is aware. You weaponized it. I preserved it. Daniel leaned forward. You also told me you'd handle it. Victoria didn't flinch. Yes. What did you mean? That you were not untouchable. Silence. Absolute silence. The judge leaned back slowly. The defense tried one last angle. Attorney General Hale, did you lie under oath? No. Did you omit material fact? Yes. Material to credibility? Yes. And you're asking this jury to trust you? Victoria looked directly at them. I'm asking you to trust the evidence. There was nothing dramatic in her voice, no raised tone, just clarity. The judge called final arguments. The prosecution went first. This case is not about politics, Ellen began. It is about money diverted from flood victims into private networks. She gestured toward the exhibits. $31 million routed through shells tied to advisory board members personally connected to the defendant. She paused. You heard recordings. You saw timestamps. You saw financial traces that existed before public exposure. She glanced at Victoria briefly. And you saw an attorney general willing to endure public scrutiny to secure admissible evidence. The defense stood. This is about power. He paced slowly. A prosecutor who recorded a sitting president. Who omitted communications. Who manipulated timing? He turned to the jury. If she is willing to bend oath language, what else has she bent? The courtroom felt suspended in a thin, invisible tension. Daniel stared ahead. Victoria sat motionless. Subscribe now to Sweet Justice because verdict moments are never as simple as they seem. The jury deliberated for 9 hours. Night fell. The courthouse. Lights remained on. Thomas-like figures from past stories were absent here. No grieving family, just political consequence. At 9:14 p.m., the jury returned. Everyone stood. The foreperson held the envelope. Daniel's breathing slowed deliberately. The clerk read, "On count 1, conspiracy to commit financial fraud. Guilty. A ripple. On count 2, obstruction of justice. Guilty. Daniels." Eyes closed briefly. On count 3, misuse of emergency relief funds. Guilty. The courtroom exhaled. The judge nodded once. Sentencing arguments were brief. Given the scale, breach of public trust and calculated diversion, the judge spoke firmly. "Daniel Cross, you were entrusted with leadership during crisis. You redirected public funds for private leverage. You attempted to influence investigation timing." She paused. "You are hereby sentenced to 18 years in state custody." Gasps. 18. Not symbolic, not light, not life-ending, but substantial. Daniel remained still. No outburst, no drama. Just the slow realization that influence had limits. The judge then turned slightly. "Regarding allegations of perjury against Attorney General Hale." The room tightened again. "This court finds that omission, while deeply concerning, does not meet the threshold of willful false statement beyond reasonable doubt." Victoria did not react outwardly. "However," the judge continued, "this court refers the matter to independent ethics review. Fair, balanced, accountable." Daniel was escorted out. This time he looked at Victoria not with anger, but recognition. "You were always 3 moves ahead," he said quietly as he passed. "No," she replied softly. "I just wasn't playing your game." The doors closed. The courtroom emptied slowly. Reporters rushed out. Phones lit up across the state. 18 years. Victoria remained seated for a moment. Marcus approached cautiously. "You knew he'd bring that recording?" "Yes." "And you were ready?" "Yes." "Did you ever doubt this?" She finally exhaled. "Yes." He waited. "Power convinces you that losing is impossible," she said quietly. "Until it isn't." Outside, the steps were flooded with media. "Attorney General, will you resign?" "No." "Will you run for governor?" "I serve the law." "Did you almost lose this case?" She paused. "Yes." Honesty, unexpected. "Justice isn't clean," she added. "It's deliberate." And then she walked away. "If you believe no office should be above scrutiny, subscribe to Sweet Justice, because the next story will test that belief again." Later that night, Daniel Cross sat in a holding cell. No cameras, no speeches, no advisors, just concrete. He replayed the moment in his mind. "You'll handle it." He had thought that meant protection. He had misunderstood. It meant accountability. Across town, Victoria reviewed the ethics referral notice. It was the cost of strategic silence, and she accepted it, because justice had not been perfect, but it had been finished, and sometimes finished is the most powerful verdict of all.